Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are on a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Arn. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer himself, the founder of the Four Horsemen, the creator of the Spine Buster. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Double A, Arn Anderson. Arn, how are you, man?
And let's not leave out, apparently, the owner of a Glock somewhere.
Apparently, somewhere. Boxinggimmicks.com has the shirts, and man, you're just doing those finger guns and putting people in their place left and right on TV these days.
Amazing. I mean, when they're chanting, get the Glock, it's like, what do? You talking about feeling let down. I cannot produce a Glock on television on command. Wish I could, but I cannot. But we'll keep after it. There's something there.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't become one of that old, what was that thing? Austin had like a pop gun thing and it said bang on McMahon once. Maybe it doesn't get that far. I like the old finger gun, and everybody's talking about the big AEW pay-per-view this past weekend. People are still buzzing about Full Gear. And before you know it, you guys are going to be back in your home away from home, Chicago, the night before Thanksgiving, this coming Wednesday. That's like the new Thanksgiving Eve tradition for you guys. I dig it.
Yeah. And a great town. And Full Gear was, I tell you, I say this all the time from an athleticism point of view. I just sit here and I look at these kids and they're adults, but young adults. And I just watch the stuff that they're able to come up with and do and perform and the effort they give for our audience. And I just sit there with my jaw on the ground. They're incredible.
It really is something to go out of your way to see. If for some reason you've been living under a rock and you haven't, some really special moments on that show. And that's what we're about here, is documenting the special moments. You and I've had a lot of fun talking about all things 1986, and we're back in the saddle today, picking it up where we left off June 1st in Charleston, South Carolina. And it's actually a day where you do two shows. You've also got one in Greensboro at the Coliseum. Greensboro is sort of the unofficial home of Jim Crockett Promotions. And that's where you would find yourself going to a draw with Wahoo McDaniel. You were also on that Charleston show though. You had Ricky and Robert on one side, teaming with Dusty Rhodes to take on yourself, Arn, and Flair and Tully on the other side. It's an elimination match. And when you're doing double duty like that, 2 shots in a day, is there a strategy? I mean, an elimination match feels like a long match, and then you go to a draw. Just from an energy standpoint, how do you keep from having an adrenaline dump?
You don't. There's no way. You just got to get yourself up, twice in one day. The key, I think, is, the cooling down process, just like the warming up process is critical. You got to stretch out. You got to warm up before a match. The the common sense would say, hey, just throw a towel around your neck, throw on a pair of sweats, unlace your boots, but just leave them on, get in the limo, go out to the private jet and head to the next town, because that's the only way to make two shots like that. You got to have private plane. But you don't do that. You take a hot shower, you burn that 30 minutes that you need, unstrap those boots, get some circulation back in your legs because those things are laced up tight. Take a hot shower and you try to wind down a little bit between the two shots and literally go back to ground zero and start over for that evening shot. You have to, and you start that whole warming up process again. If you don't, you're going to get hurt.
I want to mention for our geographically challenged listeners, Charleston to Greensboro is about a 4.5 hour drive. So you're talking nearly 300 miles or so. So you're right. The only way to do it is with help of a propeller, and you made it happen, but it just feels like quite a challenge to try to keep that going, but you did it. And the beat goes on because on June 2nd, you're in Fayetteville at the Cumberland County Memorial Arena. It's Flair and yourself on one side, taking on Ricky and Robert on the other. How much fun were you having working in a tag with Rick and against the Rock and Roll Express?
Well, I sing those guys' praises all the time because they are exactly what I said they were. They were rock stars. Anytime you could be partners with Ric Flair, it elevates your stature in the business. Rick was a world champion, and it was a marquee matchup. And those guys were, like I said, they were as hot as any other commodity in the industry at that time. And it just made for Rick and I, it was heaven. When you can beat up Ricky Morton, you could take an entire audience and just turn them on their heads. And that's what we did.
We should mention that you're going to do a TV taping in Spartanburg on the 3rd. And you're actually going to go on last in a dark match. Once again, Ricky and Robert on one side, you and Flair on the other. Is there a difference in your approach? Obviously, if it's a television quote unquote squash match, we understand what that is, but from a regular house show versus a dark match after a television taping, as an in-ring performer in that era, is the approach any different at all?
Well, number one, you have to analyze what they've seen during the course of the television taping. What just, occurred the final couple segments of the show, and you try not to go out and do anything that's going to step on what you just saw on TV. You go out and you have like a regular house show match. But what you need to do always is find out, okay, if they just had a 3-segment, hypothetically, main event on the television show, and, which is a long match, and they just concluded it, and they had a certain finish to that match, certainly you wouldn't want to duplicate anything that they've already seen, if that makes any sense. You want to have a different, it's almost like television's over now. Okay, we got a house show match, but you don't go out and go 30 minutes after you've just seen a 3-segment match. You would cut that down to say, hey, let's give them a real hot 15 minutes and get out of there. It's a play-by-play, day-by-day situation. You just try to do something that will end the night on a good note and not conflict with what you've already seen.
Dorton Arena, Raleigh, North Carolina, is the home on the 4th. It's going to be Dusty, Ricky, and Robert taking on the 6-man again of Rick, Arn, and Tully in an elimination match. What was the relationship like with Dusty, Ricky, and Robert here? I know we've touched on it before, but as far as the in-ring chemistry, not backstage stuff, but how different is a match when you go from, obviously you have a lot of ring time, if you will, with Rick and Tully. So that's probably not that challenging. But when you've got a tag team machine like the Rock and Roll Express, and then you insert Dusty Rhodes there, How does it change the match from your perspective?
We made superstars out of all three of them because that was our job. And it was very easily to get, let's just say you start with Robert and you get Robert in and you make Robert look like, Godzilla. Then you tag Ricky in, you come in and it looks like you're going to stop Ricky, and then you have Ricky blow up on you. It's real easy then to turn around and look at your heavy hitter and make a big spectacle out of tagging Dusty in for the first time. In comes Elvis, and we all feed him for the jabs and the elbows, and he knocks everybody on their ass, including JJ on the apron, who's doing the hully gully, and you're off and running, man. It was a winning formula.
On June 6th, you're going to be in Norfolk, Virginia at the Scope. You'll be working second from the top. It'll be Flair and yourself taking on Ricky and Robert. The main event that night is the James Boys taking on Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey. On June 7th, there's a matinee show where you would team up with Tully to take on George South and Randy Mulkey. Of course, this is going to be a taping in the old TBS studios. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about Randy Mulkey. What are your favorite outside of the ring stories of the Mulkey brothers?
Well, just the fact that they became cult heroes, to be honest with you. It maybe didn't happen and the audience didn't realize it at the time, but these kids came from Anderson, South Carolina. They wanted to be wrestlers. They showed up at television tapings, and I would venture to say they took some of the worst beatings ever recorded in the wrestling industry. But, each week they would go back home to their regular lives, put themselves back together, whatever it took. And man, you knew at the next TV taping, those guys were going to be there. They kept showing up. And, what they were not blessed with athletically or physically, and I don't mean that as a knock, it's just a fact, they made up for with guts. They took some tremendous beatings and just kept coming for more. So, at the end of the day, you don't realize sometimes how good something was till much further down the road. And you go back and, kudos and respect to the Mulkeys.
Let's take a listen to some television that dropped on June 7th. Of course, it's the weekend, so that means there's something for everybody here. You've got not only the TBS show, but the syndicated shows as well. We've got a Horsemen promo here from Worldwide, and this is June 7th, 1986. Let's take a listen.
The three horsemen, Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard, and Arn Anderson.
And look at all that we can look. David Crockett, you had the nerve to make an idiotic statement a while ago that the greatest wrestling attraction in the world was going to be here tonight, Dusty Rhodes, right out there in the middle of that ring. Well, you know how stupid that sounds. You're looking at the world television champion, the national heavyweight champion, the world champion, and the legendary James A. Dillon, and everybody in the building wants to know what's causing all this. And I'll tell you what it is. What's causing this is ability, wrestling ability. You're looking at the greatest wrestlers alive today. Three. What do we got here, huh? Good. Let me tell you something, stud hoss. You out here shooting your mouth off day in and day out about what you can do. The greatest sports attraction in the world today is going to wrestle on this TV tonight. If you got anything in that gut of yours besides butterflies, you'll go back, put on your tights, put on your coat, put on your robe, and face me tonight, right in that ring right there. Oh, and by the way, Tully, Baby Doll told me, David Crockett, it costs a lot of money to put one of us on television. So Dusty Rhodes, you just keep on dreaming.
I feel strongly that saving money is important. if it's not something we worry about now, boy, we are really going to worry about it later. And I want to help you get out of debt faster and do it with cheaper monthly payments. I'm talking to you if you're in a 30-year loan. Now is the time to take years off of your loan. We're routinely helping our listeners cut 5, 10, even 15 years off their loan. And you can do this without perfect credit with no money out of pocket. You've just got to start at savewithconrad.com. So fun little segment there where seemingly all the baby faces come out and face you guys. It's not just Dusty, but it's the Rock and Roll Express. And of course, in this era, Ricky's still wearing the face mask, and they got Boogie Woogie with them. And I mean, really, it's the baby faces here standing up to the Horsemen. What'd you think of that interaction, that promo, that little bit there?
Well, I think number one, I want to know what Baby Doll told Dusty.
I wondered the same thing with the beep. I was hoping you could smarten us up, but it has been a long time.
That was personal.
Yes.
That was like innuendos and whispering in the ear and that kind of stuff. It's like one of them harlequin romances. You know what I mean?
Listen to that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not privy. I thought you knew.
Oh, I'm just trying to learn, man. I'm just sitting under your learning tree. I don't know anything.
Nobody tells me nothing at the time.
To your point, bleeping it out made us all go, what was that? So even if it wasn't a home run line, when you insert the bleep, curiosity, right? Everybody's like, whoa, what was that?
Well, and for sure, something that you shouldn't have said,
right?
Which makes it even juicier, right?
Yes. Yes.
So we're getting all the good guys there together, and there are going to be some shenanigans before that show's over. That's what I'm getting from this.
We're not done. Over the weekend, we would also see you on Worldwide, and you've got a few things to say. Let's take a listen here. This is from June 7th, 1986.
You will see Road Warrior Animal and Dusty Rhodes in a steel cage against Ole and Arn Anderson.
Rhodes, it seems like every time you get around the Andersons, you keep getting hurt. Now, you're not tough enough to stand the heat, but you're stupid enough to keep coming back for more. So now you figure you got Animal as your partner. That's going to equal all things out. Well, Rhodes, you're not a whole man anymore, and you're losing your edge. Just smarten Animal up how it is to be in a cage with an Anderson.
For the world heavyweight title, it's your boy Ric Flair defends against Road Warrior Hawk. What?
So we got one. This is in the old days where they would quote unquote bicycle the tapes, and you couldn't see the video. This is a podcast, but at the bottom it had the date, the time, everywhere that match was happening, and of course how you could get your tickets. And it was one after another. I cut it off because Rick was coming in largely to say the same thing. But the idea was this is how you sold tickets. And of course, the wrestling business has changed 100 different times over the years. But in these days, the localized promo here really became like an infomercial to sell tickets, which is your primary revenue driver at that point. This is before the days of television rights fees and before the crazy merchandise days. The way we made money is people bought tickets. So you had to become a master at talking them into the seats. And it just became a factory in the back of the studio. And it was a nice little effect there because, and it's a little thing, but you had Tony Schiavone holding the microphone right in front of the cage. And then when it's time for your promo, you walk out behind the cage. So he's holding the microphone up to the cage and you're talking about a cage match that you've got coming up. For the next promo, well, Ric Flair's not in a cage match, so he comes out and stands shoulder to shoulder with Tony Schiavone in front of the cage. It's a little thing, but boy, it just takes me back. The good old days. You had to be having fun with that and then looking back at those memories pretty fondly, right?
Yeah, and it was the magic of having a budget. You could get those things done pretty cost effective. You know what I mean? Like you said, behind the cage, in front of the cage. It didn't take 2 sets and having to cut and go to 2 different things. You got it. And having Tony Schiavone, the ultimate baby face, pointing out all the facts and figures and dates and times, that took us from having to do it. We could just talk about the match. And, the announcers probably should get a little more credit than they do. Because in those days, man, they really helped sell the product. That's for sure.
Really just so fun. You can find some of these. You know what? We'll go ahead and have our folks tweet that out. It's at the Arn Show So as you're listening to this, just cruise on over and be sure to check this out at the Arn Show. We'll have it up on Twitter so you can see it because it's just super fun. So let's catch up here. This is from the end of the 605 show. They're going to be recapping a live event. This is probably something that aired on the syndicated show. It's an attack on the Horsemen or from the Horsemen on Dusty. But then we'll hear the promo from the studio. Let's take a listen.
They have him. He dropped him on his head. Magnum comes in. Finally, as the friends of Dusty Rhodes come in, there you see Ole Anderson with Arn, Tully, and JJ and Ric Flair. Happy to have Ole Anderson back. And you know, this man right here is going to be smiling when he comes in.
What did I tell you? Our credibility of the Four Horsemen is based on one fact and one fact only. When we tell you something's going to happen, it happens. And Dusty Rhodes, you find yourself in an unenviable position. You were on the rebuttal end of what you and the Road Warriors did to The Rock. Well, The Rock's back, Daddy. 4 horsemen, not 3, 4 horsemen. And when we start choosing sides, Rhodes, just remember one thing. Magnum's felt the horrification. Ronnie Garvin's felt it. Sam Houston's felt it. You felt it. You've all been hurt because you want to get in bed with the big dogs. So now, recap it and start asking Dusty Rhodes, how many friends do I really have when they got to sit there and think, hey, maybe the 4 horsemen going to get me getting out of my car, maybe get me at the bar. We will jump you anywhere, anytime. And The Rock has a few words for you right now, Dusty Rhodes. Roll the tape.
Let's take a look and a listen.
I was there. I thought I was there.
I heard somebody that just said, maybe our eyes deceive us. Maybe it's somebody that just looks like Anderson. Maybe our TV is messed up. Maybe a pig can fly. Maybe. There ain't no maybes about it, David Crockett. You're looking at the 4 horsemen. We're back together. Rhodes, you make the biggest mistake of your life by even staying in wrestling. You should have got out. You got 2 chances now. One is to stay out. The other is to get yourself crippled so bad that even your papa the plumber ain't gonna know you when we get done rearranging your pipes. You take a look at all the people that have tried to help Dusty Rhodes. What's the name? The Rock and Roll Express. Well, here, we got a nose on the other end of this one. We take care of you, Ricky. We go to Robert, and we go to the most important man, the American dream, the one that everybody believes the sun rises and sets on. Did you really think that you were going to get rid of the Horsemen? Did you really think that Ole Anderson was going to go off to the sawmill and sit for the rest of his life? I tell you this, Rhodes, there's no way that it's going to be over. I know it now. No way it's going to be over until one of us.
Whoa, they muted
And right
it.
now, you're looking at the burial team. You're looking at the team that's got the shovels. We got the plot of ground out there, and you might as well realize it, and everybody in the world better realize it. This ain't no joke. This ain't no funnin'. This ain't no April Fools. I'm as serious as I can be. We're going to get rid of Dusty Rhodes. You bank on it. You go down. You can bet on it. I don't care who helps him. I don't care where. I don't know when. All I know is going to be done. And right now, we're going to do a little celebrating because the 4 horsemen are back in business. The 4 horsemen. Yes!
I thought I was next.
Serious words right there from Ole Anderson.
Well, all I heard in every arena across this country was, I'm next. Well, Dusty Rhodes, I don't want to say I told you so, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but toot, toot.
There it is.
Talk about the U.S. heavyweight title right after this.
One of the most famous promos of your life, June 6th, 1986, June 7th, rather, 1986. We'll put that out on our social as well if you want to see it at the Arn Show. But boy, the return of Ole Anderson, and then, man, that Toot Toot, I got chill bumps. What a great promo.
I tell you what, I wished I was that good. He is. I don't care what you think about him personally. You know, I don't care what what other people have done and their accomplishments, that is about as convincing as anything you'll ever hear. And it had me convinced. You talk about chill bumps, my God. And it was a pivotal day, mark that date down. It's one of those dates that in the history of Jim Crockett Promotions that business was going to take another jump.
It's interesting to go back and sort of break all of this down and follow the storylines. But my goodness, Toot Toot, is that one of the most quoted promos of your life, do you think?
I think a lot of people got a chuckle out of that. It was a little out of character, but not. It was just me being a smart ass. And yeah, I mean, I hear that, it made for a pretty, decent t-shirt that people could have a laugh with, and people remember that. It's one of those things that's different, I guess, than what they've heard before, and it was out of character but not. So yeah, it's one of those.
Great stuff. And you're back on the road June 8th. No rest for the weary. Once again, tagging with Ric Flair, taking on Ricky and Robert in a Texas Tornado match. Okay, it's been 35 years. You can spill the beans. Texas Tornado match, that just sounds cool on a poster. Do you actually change the match that you put together? There's no way, right? It's the same, right?
Well, it's what you try to do is it actually starts, what we would try to do is start it out as a normal tag match, but then let it melt down. And when it melts down with all four people fighting, there's no DQs, there's no countouts. You can then fight all around ringside. You can fight out in the crowd. You can do all that, but you still tried to have a little sense about this to build it from a match to a match breaking down. And now here comes the Texas Tornado part. Because if you didn't, it's hard to just go fist fight for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Or 25 minutes. So you had to build it. You had to have a little bit of match. That was the creative liberty that we took.
We're going to be back on the road on the 12th here in San Antonio at the Convention Center, working in a singles match against Robert Gibson. So that's a different coat of paint, right? Not you in a tag match against the Rock and Roll Express, but you in a singles against Robert Gibson. We haven't spent any time talking about Robert as a singles competitor. How was he as an opponent in a one-on-one effort?
Fantastic. Great performer. People loved him. It's always, there was a formula that worked for those guys, and I bet it's still working today, where Ricky did the selling mostly, I'm going to say. Robert made the comeback. But when you got Robert in a single situation, there was nothing he couldn't do. He had no shortcomings as far as his in-ring work. He could sell, he could make a great comeback, he could tell you a great story. It was a pleasure working with Robert in a single situation.
Before you know it, it's time to be back doing a little TV again. We're back in Atlanta. We're back doing the TBS thing. It'll be Ole and Arn taking on the Mulkey Brothers on the 14th. And we've got some clips from that weekend. Of course, it is the syndicated show on Worldwide where we would hear from you. Let's take a listen. This is June 14th, 1986.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard him. I have a man coming. Arn Anderson, one of the four horsemen, world television champion.
Well, David Crockett, all throughout this country, all I've been hearing the last few months is you're next. You're next. He's going to break your leg next. He's going to break your jaw, this and that, the other. Well, David Crockett, one other thing they always asked was, where's Ole? In a very sarcastic tone of voice. Well, you asked Dusty Rhodes where Ole Anderson is. What he is all over the top of you. It's not three horsemen. All along, we've been telling you, it's four horsemen. You want to look at our resume? I'm going to start in chronological order. You have Sam Houston, broke arm. You, Magnum TA, face scrubbed in the mat. You, Dusty Rhodes, broke leg. Robert Gibson, Ricky Morton. Dusty Rhodes, you're a two-time winner. We got to you again. So all I can tell you, you want to get in bed with the big dogs?
You want to play with the four horsemen? That's all well and good. You're going to get hurt in. Warlord, get you some World Book encyclopedias because you're going to want to learn how to spell horseman. We're going to put it on your epitaph.
All right, let's hear.
I love that. It's your encyclopedia. You're going to want to learn how to spell horseman. That's funny. I don't know why, but it is.
Because you're a fellow smartass. That's right. You're in that clique.
I am, unfortunately. I'm one of the King Ball Busters, or so Tony Schiavone tells us. And thankfully, you're back in action on TBS. It's a squash match and a promo from you and Ole. Let's take a listen here.
Ropes. Breaks on the count.
As we're hearing some physicality here, you hear how well the ring is mic'd up. Did that make a big difference in the enjoyment of the product to you? I mean, obviously it's a studio, so you don't hear as much of the crowd, but man, you hear everything that happens in that ring, the canvas, the ropes. It adds a lot to me as a performer. What did you think of that?
Yeah. The sound effects are excellent. You don't necessarily hear it when you're in the ring, but it makes great for the viewing audience. But it's all part of the TV magic. The one thing that you do hear is that roaring coming from Ole. So this is the Mulkeys in this match. Is that correct?
We've well, I don't think that's not the Mulkeys.
Whoever it is taking a tremendous ass whooping because this is Ole's first TV back, right?
Yeah.
In a match.
He's not only back, but he wins with a standing arm breaker, and he's got some things to say. Let's take a listen.
Obviously, something you want to talk about. I think we have a piece of tape we want to get into also.
This is a start. I want everybody to know, and you in particular, Rhodes, and your whole band of merry men, I want you to know that the four horsemen are back. You take a look. You see what's happening in the ring here. Always 3-4 people ganging up on Arn, ganging up on Rick, ganging up on Tully. This is where I made my entrance. 6 months I'm laying there. Andersons are back. The four horsemen are back. And still people haven't learned. These two rock and rollers, I think they can beat everybody. There's too much of Dusty Rhodes in them. There's too much of Magnum TA in them. But watch what happens when the four horsemen are back together. Take a look now. How does Ricky look? Not so good. How does Robert look? Not so good. But there's one man that I'm waiting for. One man above all else. And I know that he just can't sit back and watch. He's got to stick his nose into everybody's business. And here's the guy I'm talking about right here. The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Only this time, instead of standing up and walking tall and looking great and being the American Dream, he's on his knees. And you know what he's doing on his knees? You know what he's doing, Tony?
No.
He's begging. He's help me. Help, please help. He looked at me and I looked at him and I said, Rhodes, it's over for you. You had 5-6 months of vacation time and now it's time for you to pay some dues. And I'm not fooling. I'm not joking. I told him before, I'm not going to finish, not quit until I get rid of Dusty Rhodes. And you're going to see it happen. I'm going to make a big prediction here in a little while. So you just stay tuned because I'll make the biggest and most important prediction of my career right here on TV.
Okay. A prediction will be coming up very soon, and we're coming right back.
So what'd you think of Ole's return here?
Well, that big prediction, I'm thinking, God, that sounds huge. Do you think he's actually going to reach in his back pocket, pull his wallet out and pop for lunch one time? I mean,
probably not, but we know we don't want you reaching anywhere, but don't reach for the remote because Ole is back on the other side of the break.
Back again with the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, Ole and Arn Anderson, and a prediction you talked about.
Well, they call me a Rhodes scholar now because I know more about Dusty Rhodes than any man on earth. Prediction I'm going to make is this. Rhodes can't stay very long. His body is getting punished too much, and with me coming back like that, I'm sure he sees a light. And I predict this year, sometime in 1986, that Dusty Rhodes is going to announce his retirement. And when he does, it's going to be a great day for the four horsemen. When he does, I'm going to buy beer for everybody all around. Wherever you see me, you walk up and you just tell me, Dusty Rhodes retired, and I'm going to buy you a beer. I'm going to buy you a meal. And you be looking, because it's going to happen. You see some of these other people. Looking at Magnum TA, one of the boys that follows around like a little puppy dog behind Dusty Rhodes. How about the Rock and Roll Express? I'll tell you something about the Rock and Roll Express. They're good. They're young. They're strong. They come back from injuries. That's important to be young. But I'll tell you this, they're scared. You look at them. They're scared. They're scared now that the Four Horsemen are back. They're scared that the Andersons are together. You don't have to believe me. Go ask them. Go ask the Rock and Roll Express. We're too big. We're too strong. We're just too good. Anybody that gets in our way, they're going to find out just how good we are. The Four Horsemen back. We're going to take everything. We're going after the world tag. We're going after the single, which we've now got. We're going to keep. We're going to take that US. We're going to have the TV. We're going to have them all. Anybody gets in our way, they're going to find out. Rhodes, you're a marked man. Jimmy Valiant, no problem. Magnum TA, no problem. Rock and Roll Express, no problem. We're going through y'all. I told you before, I'm dead serious. We don't do a lot of cute stuff. I don't want to yell and don't want to holler. Just want to tell you like it is. We're straight from the shoulder when we say we're better than anybody else. If you don't believe it, you try us. And I don't mean just in the ring. I mean anywhere. I mean, we're that good. And I guarantee you, you get a little taste of the Andersons, you get a little taste of the Four Horsemen. You're not going to like it. We're here to stay. We're going to beat everybody that we meet. We're going to take all the belts that we can take. The Four Horsemen are back. The Andersons are back.
What can I say to top that, Tony?
Go get him, Tully.
The Andersons.
What we just started.
The Andersons are back. Let's go.
Man, he had a way of just calming it all down, and you leaned in and you listened intently, and it felt real. Every word he said.
He's going to pop for lunch. See, that was a SP moment for me. You didn't know I had those powers. Bullshit. He ain't going to buy nobody a beer or a meal.
No,
he was lying.
Alligator arms. Deal. It's got that Dave Silva effect. On the 14th, after you do this television taping here in the morning, you're in Baltimore, and you're going to be working with Manny Fernandez to go to a time limit draw at the 20-minute mark. 20 minutes with Manny Fernandez feels like punishment. Did you piss somebody off, or what was going on here?
No, that's amazing that you could go back to that match and have some interest when that was the very first television taping that I did, March the previous year. This was 15 months earlier. I debuted with an angle with Manny Fernandez, and the fact that you could go back to that match and still have some interest, but a lot of things had, evolved since then. The Horsemen were together and all kind of different things, television title and all those things that made that matchup, which was very physical. And, being in a match with Manny, he was very physical guy to work with. And I think the people that knew the history knew they were still going to get a hell of a fight, irregardless of win, lose, or draw.
June 16th, you guys are in Greenville, South Carolina. It's Ricky and Robert taking on Tully and Arn. We talked earlier, you were doing a lot of matches with Rick as a tag team partner. Obviously, he brings a lot of star power and a different approach. But when do you think you and Tully really started to find your rhythm as tag team partners? Because at this point, you've tagged with everybody a lot. Ole, Tully, and Arn. Of course, I think most of the people listening to this eventually come around to, boy, Arn and Tully were probably the best of the bunch. When did you feel that way? That, man, there's something here that's just magic.
Well, Ole, when Ole and I would tag, Ole was the power guy. I would try to go in and set the mood of the match and the pace of the match and all that. And be quite honest with you, I took most of the beating. With Tully and I, it was a whole different dynamic because his style of work was totally different. We started to click, I would say, the very first match, just me playing off of what he did and seeing openings and him creating openings for me and me for him. And it wasn't without a lot of, there wasn't a lot of conversation about it. It was just sometimes, you put two guys together in the ring and they just click, and I could start to feel it from day one. I really could.
June 18th, Dorton Arena. We just mentioned is where that one went down with Ricky and Robert and yourself. Actually, we skipped the TV taping here. Greenwood, South Carolina on the 17th. That's going to be yourself and Tully taking on Sam Houston and Tony Zane. But then once again, a rematch with Ricky and Robert in Dorton on June 18th, this time in a steel cage match. This is not the main event. This is a steel cage match that's sort of in the middle of the card. So we're going to have to take time to set the cage up and tear it down. One would assume they probably set the cage up during intermission. And then, you guys have your match. But when you have a cage match in this era and it's not going on last, does it change your approach to how you might structure the match as opposed to a cage match in the main event?
No, I think it was probably always a mistake to not put it on last.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who, what the angle, what the title, what the beef is. You should just build to that. To me, that's dead time, stopping a show, even if you did it during intermission, and put up a cage and have that type of match. When if you've got Rock and Roll Express against the Four Horsemen in a cage, wouldn't you hate to be the next match when they tore that cage down?
Yeah, I don't want any part of that.
What a bullshit spot that is. Jesus. So I think those were mistakes that were made at the time, but far be it, from us to say, hey, I wouldn't do that. We were just glad to be in the spot, but it should always build to a cage. In those days, it was a simple fact. Cage matches were for baby faces that had been wronged, had been tag teamed, had been triple teamed, had been run in on, had been screwed every way imaginable. Once you put that cage up and you got that, whoever the victim had been, the baby face, and whoever the perpetrator had been, once they locked them in that cage, it was payday for the good guys. And that's the way that it was done. And you took a beating and you bled your ass off. And when it was all said and done, you feel like, okay, that dog had his day. And that's what a cage match was for. That's what the audience paid to see, because they knew that it was going to be that way. And it was just a good foreshadowing of things to come.
June 19th, you are getting that cage match going on last, and that's in Columbia. Oh, you might be wondering, Arn, hey, what did go on after that cage match in the middle of the show in Dorton? Barbarian, Baron Von Raschke, and Pez Whatley beat Manny Fernandez, Jimmy Valiant, and Hector Guerrero. And then in the main event, it was the Midnight Express taking on Ron Garvin and Wahoo McDaniel. But the cage match goes on last at the Township Auditorium in Columbia on the 19th. On the 20th, we're back in Richmond. This time you're going to be in a singles match against Ron Garvin in a taped fist match. Tully Blanchard would interfere. Of course, we're getting over his knockout power, that being Ron Garvin, but you pick up the win. How was Ron to work with in your experience in this singles capacity?
Well, he was tremendous, and he damn sure didn't need a tape fist to knock you out.
No.
Bare fist would have been just fine. Ronnie Garvin had a different style. It was, it was mostly mat wrestling, wasn't a high spot guy, but he could literally make you believe, Conrad, if you remember back to some of his matches, you could snatch a headlock on Ronnie Garvin and he could make a 4 or 5 minute production out of getting out of that headlock. And he would literally have you latch onto that thing, man. And he would get 1/18 of daylight showing as he was muscling his way out of that headlock, and you'd snatch it back and he would build it a little more each time. He would almost get to the top wrist lock and you'd snatch him back into it. And the people absolutely were buying the struggle because it looked, felt, and it was a struggle. And he never threw anything away, no wasted motion. Great mat wrestler. Very physical. He chopped a lot, had good punches. Of course, the Garvin stomp became famous, right?
Yes, it did.
Where he went around a guy's body and literally stomped every inch of his body, which later Randy Orton, emulated, and it became the Orton stomp. So, that's the greatest form of flattery there is for a guy like Randy Orton to take that and steal it from Ronnie Garvin. But he was just one of those guys that made you believe from the second the bell rang to the rang again, you had been in a bar fight. It wasn't pretty. It never was pretty. And however you ended up, win, lose, or draw, man, you were going to take a beating working for Ronnie Garvin for sure.
Let's keep it going and talk about the return to TBS. It's going to be Ole and Arn taking on the Mulkey brothers on June 21st at the television taping, and more importantly, we get a promo that day with the Horsemen. Let's take a listen. June 21st, 1986.
Again, Bash. Robert Gibson, Ricky Morton, the Rock and Roll Express. Here are three of the four Horsemen. J.J. Dillon, and now here's
don't get ahead of yourself. What you have here is the four Horsemen united, live and exciting color, right here on national television. The Rock is back, and the impact was felt all around the wrestling world. And now that the Anderson brothers are back, Flair, the world's heavyweight champion, Tully Blanchard, national heavyweight champion, along with the infamous James J. Dillon, nobody or nothing can stop what's going to happen.
The bash is upon us, and we've got a lot of people that think they're going to do some avenging. We'll get ready. We're ready for the bash. Rhodes, everybody else, I hope you're ready, because we're coming your way.
Tony Schiavone, all I got to say is I told you The Rock was coming back. We base our credibility on one thing. We don't make promises. We don't make threats that we can't make good. The Rock's back. You want to get in bed with the big dogs, you're going to get on the critical list, whoever you are.
Tony Schiavone, never let it be said that Ric Flair hasn't stood between a couple of real big men in his life. All I hear about are the Road Warriors and Dusty Rhodes and Magnum TA. Well, you guys, wherever you are, and we know for a fact a lot of you are having a hard time finding your way to the television station when you know that the Horsemen are in the same building. As a matter of fact, Dusty Rhodes is sitting in Charlotte or Houston or Dallas, wherever he is, sending in videos. Well, brother, this isn't a video shop. It's a wrestling promotion, and we like to see the guys we don't like firsthand. Now, there's two other guys that have been hard-pressed to find their way here, too. The Road Warriors, We're talking about Animal and Road Warrior Big Bird Hawk. That's right. That's a good one, huh? We're talking about you. That's right, Hawk. When we get done with you, Hawk, we're going to stretch that big neck of yours about a foot longer, and they're going to call you Road Warrior Big Bird Hawk. You know why? Because we say so. We told Dusty Rhodes we was going to break his legs, and we broke his leg. We told Morton and Gibson they were going to get hurt, and they got hurt. In other words, this elite family has got the distinction, of doing what they say they're going to do. So whether you like it or not, learn to love it, because we're going to be here for a long, long time. One more short note. If there's a woman in the world that's between the age of 18 and 28 that's not wearing a training bra, that wants to find out what a real man's all about, then girl, what's causing all this? Yeah! Woo!
the four Horsemen together, and coming up right after this break.
Learn to love it. What's causing all this, buddy? We're just hitting classic interviews back to back to back here in consecutive weeks.
Did he call Hawk Big Bird?
Yes, he did.
Oh, something tells me that's going to bite us on the ass somewhere down the road. I'm certain there was at least 5 to 7 times I got knocked out cold for the Big Bird line, and I didn't even say it. Where's the justice in that?
Well, I think they have something to say here. Let's take a listen.
Primed up with the
You
bag.
think?
Gotta watch him.
We're going to see Flair wrestle on that show. He didn't often wrestle, but he's going to have a match with an enhancement talent, if you will. And all of a sudden, things are going to break down when Big Bird decides to show up. So let's take a listen.
Tried everything. Hawk goes right after him.
Oh, Philadelphia in the bash.
Oh! Look at it. Hawk presses Rick right over his head as he walks up. Wait a minute. Oh!
So Hawk just did a press slam onto Flair from the ring to the outside. Arn and Tully catch him, and then from behind, Ole catches him with a knee, and now it's 4-on-1. Let's take a listen.
Now, all four horsemen jump on Hawk. They're trying to put him out. They're trying to keep him out of Philadelphia.
This has got to be the plan.
Here comes Animal. Let's stop him. Put a knee into him. Wait a minute. Look at him. Now they go down.
And Paul Ellering and Animal. Now JJ. Oh, he knocks Paul Ellering into the back of the head. And now into the post. Animal into the post.
What's he going to do? They got him. Hawk's up there. Hey, look at Animal. They pound drive him on the floor.
Pile drive Animal on the floor.
Animal's down. Paul Ellering's down. Now they're taking Hawk.
Get him up. The gigantic gourd buster.
So our gourd buster on Hawk in the middle of the ring, 4-on-1. Animal's been pile driven on the floor, and now here comes Flair as everybody holds Hawk back. Flair just open hand slaps him twice. Down goes Hawk. And the entire four horsemen and JJ Dillon are celebrating in the ring. And boy, the LOD is just left laying here.
Okay, David, the Road Warriors still down.
That's never happened.
Animal down on the floor, pressures Paul Ellering, and Hawk, who had come into the ring, like Ric Flair said he wanted to see Road Warrior Hawk. He slapped him right in the face.
They came in. They saw Hawk, Animal, Ellering. They jumped in the four horsemen, really five, because you got to include JJ Dillon. They all went after him.
Well, we're looking at Animal right now. Didn't even get a chance to get into the ring to help out Hawk. And we're going to take a look right now once again at a portion of what you saw as Hawk came in. The music of the Road Warriors playing. And like we said, like you said, David, trying to prevent the Hawk from going to Philadelphia in the back.
Hawk there. Look at it. Rick trying everything, but can't stop the Hawk. Road Warrior Hawk takes Rick. Now look at this. Oh, just crushes him. Then picks him up. Now look at him. Press Ric Flair right over his head. Walks over. Now you remember, Arn Anderson's coming in. Tully.
This look at that. One of the most incredible things I've ever seen on World Championship Wrestling. The power of the Hawk. But David, we talked about four horsemen. Here's the fourth one, right from behind.
Then they start. All four horsemen start to pound away on Road Warrior Hawk.
Four horsemen, nothing. What they just proved here, without a doubt, that the people already knew, is that they're punks because one of them can't get the job done. Animal and Hawk will take on 2, 3, just tell us. But we can't fight 4. 4-1. Give me a break. All my life and all Animal's life, we fought and scrapped for everything we had. And nobody has ever slapped me in the face in my life. My mama never slapped me in my face. My dad never slapped me in my face. But Ric Flair, he's gonna slap me in the face when he's got 3 guys holding me. Yeah, then he's gonna slap me in the face. It don't make no difference now, Philadelphia. I don't care about no stinking belts now. I want Ric Flair, and I'm gonna have him in Philadelphia. And it ain't gonna be the 4 horsemen. It's gonna be you, Flair. It's gonna be me. And for this, you think you did something good for you? And the 4 horsemen, you think you're a big man now? You did me a favor. You made me see the light. You brought the hate into me that I ain't had in a long time.
And now I know how good it feels. And I'm going to tell you, Flair, the last town you're going to ever see is Philadelphia, the American Bash. Flair, the end of the championship is the end of the line for you. You can hurt me, but I get back up. I'm going to hurt you like you ain't never been hurt before. I've heard you talk about you're going to die with the belt. We'll see you in Philadelphia.
And we'll see you next week on World Champion.
What a great line. You're going to die with the belt. Well, we'll see you in Philadelphia.
I would venture to say, and I have not heard that promo in a long, long time. Maybe, I don't know that I actually got to hear it properly that night.
Yeah.
Got to be the best one he's ever done.
I agree totally.
It had content. It had, it had malice in it. It wasn't a guy screaming and hollering. It was, let me just go on record saying, I would say up to that day, you had never seen the Road Warriors even remotely close to being in a compromising position like that.
Not that vulnerable for sure.
And to have them all down and have them all laying, if it did take four of us, I mean, we told guys going in, if you jump on one of us, you jump on all of us. It wasn't a secret. If you attack one of the Road Warriors, don't you think the other two would have got involved? Sure. It was a bond. It was we were family. It was a way of life. So, the fact that we used the numbers, hey, it was a smart move when you got those guys, especially. So it was a hell of an angle that we would ride for another year off of that. You never had to get those guys down like that again. Once was enough. And man, when you're plugging a violent city and a great sports city like Philadelphia, who are going to get one of the first payoffs to this angle, God, you think those people were excited? I guess.
We should mention the next day on the 22nd, you guys do a matinee show at the Omni. So on the 21st, that night you're in the Scope working with Robert Gibson, but a matinee show on the 22nd at the Omni. The Omni's usually the big nighttime show. That's not the case here. But on the matinee, it's you and Ole taking on Ron and Robert Gibson, Ron Garvin and Robert Gibson. And you're probably wondering, well, if it's a tag match and Robert Gibson's got a different tag team partner, what's Ricky Morton doing? Ricky Morton is in a steel cage match challenging the world champion Ric Flair in the main event. But unfortunately, that combination doesn't necessarily do gangbusters at the box office. There's only 2,000 fans there. In hindsight, do you think it was more that it was a matinee? Fans really loved the Rock and Roll Express as an attraction as opposed to Ricky as a singles. Why do you think we only had 2,000 folks here? Probably more with the matinee, do you think, or what say you?
I think you're right in both counts. The Omni, from my childhood on until I got in the business, and pretty much 90% of the time is Sunday night. That's usually when the Omni ran, not in the afternoon. When you split up the Rock and Roll Express, I'm not sure that anybody had the confidence in Ricky that he would win the world title in that cage. They knew something was going to happen. There were a lot of things, I think, that were out of the ordinary that caused that, not to draw like it should have, because every other place was on fire. There had to be a reason. And I can't probably put my finger on it, but I will say this: the Rock and Roll Express together have more value than the sum of their parts as individuals.
I think that's fair.
And that's not a knock. I think the people are just conditioned to seeing them as a team going after the tag team titles.
Sometimes they just weren't ready for the singles thing. And I think, people have said that about other iterations. I know when people broke up the Shield, people thought, well, there's more meat left on the bone here. Why would we do that? And obviously it worked out for those guys individually in the long run, but yeah, I just don't think fans wanted to see the Rock and Roll Express as singles just yet.
You may be 100% correct.
Greensboro on the 22nd has 7,000 fans. You go to a 20-minute time limit draw with Robert Gibson in singles action. There's a TV taping in Fayetteville, North Carolina on the 23rd. And this is Ole and Arn taking on Sam Houston and Denny Brown. On the 24th, you're doing another TV taping, teaming with Ole to take on Don and Rocky Kernoodle. And then Ole would be in singles action against Bill Mulkey, and you'll corner him. And then you're going to pop up on the 27th, which is actually the day I turned 5. So when I'm turning 5, here's what Arn's doing.
That's bullshit. Bullshit. I'm just throwing a flag on you.
Ole and
15 yards.
Yeah, unnecessary roughness.
Yes.
Something like that. You get to work with the rock and rolls here in Ole, though. So that had to be a good time. And then it's a super taping that happens. It's a 90-minute episode of TBS, June 28th, 1986. Ole and Arn are going to take on Tony Zane and Rocky Kernoodle. Of course, eventually, Zane's going to submit to Ole's standing armbar. But then after the bout, Jim Cornette with Big Bubba is going to do an interview with J.J. Dillon, Tully Blanchard, Ole Anderson, and Arn Anderson talking about the Great American Bash. And I think we've got that here. Let's take a listen.
It's just like to beat people up. Different strategies, both equally as effective, I think. Tony Zane right now is finding that out. Little old.
What do you think of Jim Cornette doing a little guest commentary? He did a great job in that role, I thought.
Absolutely, 100%. Just Jimmy had heat. You know, people hated his guts, and he was an intelligent, articulate historian about the sport, you know, or the business, and he could really jazz up any segment that you put him in.
You know, we had heel commentators on the other channel, you know, Jesse Ventura and the like, and that's sort of the role that Jimmy here fills briefly. And the standing armbar gets it done after the big attack on the shoulder, the double team off the top rope. And now let's hear it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm privileged today. I'm surrounded by 3 of the 4 horsemen and their spiritual guidance. The administrative director of Tully Blanchard Enterprises, my colleague James J. Dillon, national heavyweight champion Tully Blanchard, world television champion Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson. Gentlemen, all I can say is welcome.
Mr. Cornette, you're very quick-witted today. There's nobody that's got a sharper tongue than you do. But today, for me personally, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, Magnum TA, and David Crockett in an earlier interview set the mood for me, which is a very, very dead serious mood. We're just a few days away from the Great American Bash. And a lot of money is involved, a lot of prestige, a lot of things on the line. And they talked about living in the promised land, waving the American flag. That's all fine and well. But you see, living in America doesn't guarantee you success. It only guarantees you the opportunity. And then from that point, you have to take your ability and get out and get it done. Now, American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, you crippled Ole Anderson and put him out for almost 6 months. You have not yet been fully paid for what you did, but you are vulnerable and you will go down, and it could happen before the American Bash is over with. Now, the Road Warriors, awesome. They said you couldn't beat them. They said you couldn't hurt them. And right here in this very studio, the people that you see surrounding me right now, minus the world heavyweight champion Ric Flair, who's here in spirit and constantly on our minds, was out here, and all of the Road Warriors, not one of them, not 2 of them, but all 3 of them were laid out right here in this studio, and we stepped over them on the way out. And then we turned around to prove a point and picked up the slap. That's what I'm getting to. The slap. The slap heard around the world, huh? And Tuesday, Philadelphia, Veterans Stadium, the slap was nothing because Ric Flair is going to finish and prove that it wasn't a fluke.
You know, Jim Cornette, the Horseman is like a family. Rock said it many times. And when he came back, the family was back complete. And you know, Rock, since you've been gone, Dusty Rhodes, he sends a lot of people, Garvins, Magnums, Road Warriors, all around to protect himself, so nothing happens to him. But you know, we have proved that the Horsemen are mightier than all of the rest. The Road Warriors, Garvin, all of them have all been left laying and carried out of any building by the Horsemen, Ole, Arn, Flair, and Tully. That's it. That's it. That says it all. Dusty Rhodes, you are vulnerable. Cage matches, you get the Road Warriors, you get Baby Doll, you get anybody you want. The 4 Horsemen will take you down, and Dusty Rhodes, 86 is your last year, right, Rock?
Ole?
Everybody's already said it, but Rhodes, one last message for you. I made the prediction 86 is going to be the end. I'm not kidding. I'm not joking. 4 horsemen are here together. And the one thing that we're going to do, whether it's got to be me and Tully and Arn or Rick or JJ, I don't care if it's 1 or 2, 3, 4, all 5 of us. I made the prediction it's going to stick. Rhodes, you're done at 86.
Arn? I'm going to be dead serious, and I'm directing this right to you, Rhodes, Garvin, Wahoo, Rock and Roll Express, Magnum, whoever you may be. You look at these trophies, this one, you look at Flair's. All these are our trophies. This is not what the 4 horsemen are all about. To be a horseman, you can have one of these too, but it's inbred, it's guts, it's a determination to be the very best you can be, and not caring one bit about public opinion. You think about that. You take public opinion, put it above your own aspirations, you're going to be a failure. We do what we want to do because we want to do it. Get in here, love. Great American Dash, we're coming.
Boy, a lot of inbreeding going on for you in 86.
Damn, that's the second time I used that.
I think
word.
that's the third.
Third.
Yeah, but you're just a professional inbreeder here. But
it has to have more meaning than the obvious. Boy, JJ is good, wasn't he? How articulate, intelligent. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit.
Totally agree. It felt like he was a little lost to get going, but boy, he closed it strong. And just yelling as we're going to commercial. He had a sense of timing. The Great American Bash, we're coming. It was great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was just there. You know, the reason that stood the test of time, I think, is there were no weaknesses.
Right.
With anybody. Everybody could talk. Everybody could work. Everybody was different, which I think is, you know, the key as well. And we all played off of each other. We knew our roles. We knew, you know, what we had to do on a day-to-day basis. And you just go back and you feel this building towards the Bashes, which was that year was a huge revenue stream for the company.
Yeah.
You could just feel it in all these promos. We're pounding it. You know, it's getting time's getting closer for the Bashes, and they did incredible. So it was done the right way.
We're going to wrap things up here on this week's episode as we're talking June of 1998. I don't know why I said that. June of 1986. But this is from the 28th, that same weekend. It's a promo from Worldwide from Arn. Let's take a listen.
With us now, the 4 horsemen, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Ole Anderson. Ric Flair's not here, but J.J. Dillon is.
Here in spirit, believe me, he's here in spirit. The world champion is always with us. You know, I tell you what, you just saw the awesome, the mighty, the indestructible Road Warriors. But I understand, David Crockett, you got a film a little bit later that shows them not quite so indispensable, all right? Indestructible is the word. We talk about Dusty Rhodes. You can't beat him. You can't get to him. Everybody's around him. And besides, he's the greatest thing in wrestling today. Well, you take a look and you know what we've done to Dusty Rhodes. He's just lucky he's still walking around. A couple of other guys, they said, we never can do anything to him. You just saw him in the ring, the Road Warriors. But I'll tell you what, you watch, because pretty soon you're going to see some guys go out there in the ring and do something to the Road Warriors that's never been done. Watch real close. You're not even going to be able to believe it. They still can't believe it. When we get done, people say, well, yeah, you all gang up. You want to know something? You're right. What's the difference? When you're out for money, we don't have time to play by the rules. Rhodes, I told you, we're going to get you. One way or another, 86, it's your last year. You better kiss your butt goodbye.
You know what happened, Ole? We found out that Hawk's a little bit smarter than Animal, because when Ellering asked him what happened, Animal said, I don't know. And when he asked Hawk, Hawk says, I think I was trampled. I was trampled by 4 horses.
I love it.
About that, I was trampled by 4 horsemen.
Smart ass, James. You know, I'm starting to really recall, you know, things that, you know, behind the scenes and everyday life of that time. You know, you go back and you relive it, and everybody with that company from the first match to the last match. And for a lot of us, it was the first time ever making money, you know, and Jim Crockett Promotions was really, really doing well. And, you know, guys that, you know, they'd been in the first match, other places were starting to make a really good living. And I told you the story about, buying that Cadillac, that Eldorado, previous to this. And my granny coming out and looking in went, yeah, that's nice. Take it back. And I did. And, things were getting more stable and my life and, everybody that worked there's life. And it's just one of those things that when you've never had things growing up and you grew up very poor, your first big thing that you get and you're able to pay for and comfortably pay for, it's a proud moment. So, my wife being home at that time with a baby and, we needed more than one car. I was tooling around in a big 84 Cadillac that was probably not the right car for me. Not enough power to go through the mountains, which we drove a lot in those days, but we just happened to stop in the Nissan place and I had Aaron with me. And, I was thinking, let's get just a very economical car that will crank every time and, will be very dependable and not, take much gas and all that. And we looked in there on the showroom floor and there it sat. 1986 Champaign 300 ZX Turbo. First time they came out, with, I think that all those things with the, had the T-tops and the whole shooting match, buddy, and the big engine. And she went, God, that's pretty. I looked at the guy and said, I'll take this one.
Yep. Let my family save your family some cash. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket, but we will save you money. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of how much. SaveWithConrad.com.
And man, what a nice car it was. And just dollar for dollar, things being what they were, it was $25,000. And for that day, it was like a top shelf sports car,
Yeah.
And bought that for her, and we kept that for a long time. And it was just one of those things you remember and you see that we're being gone from home all the time and working your ass off twice a day on Saturday, twice on Sunday, having a drive or a flight every single day, 350 days plus, that you can do nice things. And it was one of those things that you just went, cool, she'll enjoy that.
I had to make you feel good as the husband, as the provider, as the man of the relationship to her say, ooh, what a car. And you said, we'll take that one.
Yep. Well, growing up, you just, barely getting by, it's fine. Grew up with a lot of love, but, there wasn't a whole lot of perks when you're just making, $282 an hour working for the county, pushing pipe between your legs 8 hours a day. You feel like, shit, I might have arrived. I might have made it.
The before all the options and whatnot, the sticker back then, the MSRP was 21 grand, and that was a lot of money in 86. It's just fun to go back and think about not just what we saw on TV, but your real life, and it's fun that you get to relive those memories. By the way, if you're wondering, that'd be like a $53,000 car today. Just with inflation, 21,000 is roughly 53,000 today. And to be able to break that off for the wife as a guy who was, just thankful to be able to make a living in wrestling, pretty proud day for Mr. Anderson.
And the best thing about it is it was happening for everybody.
Yeah.
In that company, they were buying houses and guys were renting nice apartments and everybody was getting a much better vehicle than they thought they'd ever be able to afford. And you could just see that, down on interview day, you looked at that car lot down there, man, it looked like an exotic car showroom, dealership, all the blend of the different cars, everybody was doing well and it just made everything fly. So it was a good thing. Jim Crockett Promotions was a great company to work for, man. And we were fixing to really start kicking some serious ass.
And we're going to hope to keep talking about kicking ass. We'll be back next week talking about July of 1986. We're wrapping up June now, and July is on tap. And as you heard, that means the Great American Bash is going to be here. What an interesting concept it was. Sold a lot of tickets. I'm not sure how profitable it was, but we'll talk about that soon. But more importantly, I appreciate the time today, man. This went a little longer than I hoped to today. You know, originally when we set out to record these, I don't really know exactly what we're going to talk about, but all the sidebars today made this one of our more fun episodes, I think, man. June of 86 was a great time in your career and a great time for our fans. And I just go back and I've relived 86 every week this year with Tony Schiavone. And this might be my favorite year in wrestling, 1986. Do you feel the same way?
Absolutely, for a number of reasons. And, you know, everything was taking off and people were making money and we were becoming high profile and everybody knew who you were. And I mean, just so many positive things were happening in the business. And you go back and look at it, you know, it was, I feel like 85 to 89 were the golden years of wrestling. And that means for every company as well. It was just a special time, man. And when you had full houses, everything, because it wasn't so much merchandise in those days and personal appearances and all that extra money, you know, that revenue stream that guys get now, it was fill up the house. Life is good. And that's what we're all doing. And we're all benefiting from it.
And hey, we appreciate you guys' support. We hope you're digging what we're doing over at adfreeshows.com. You get all these shows early and ad-free, including some very special bonus content from Arn that you can't get anywhere else. It's adfreeshows.com. It just starts at $9 a month, but there's even interactive Zooms where you can actually ask a question to Arn Anderson, not just on the show, but he sees you and you sue him and y'all have a conversation. It's a good time. It's adfreeshows.com. If you'd like to see some of the promos and clips that we've played here today, the video form, we'll try to sneak some of those up on Twitter at the Arn Show. And we'll be back next week talking about July of 86 right here on Arn.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.